Hey guys, it's a new month and I'm behind. Who's surprised? Anyways, today is a monthly rankings video. It's actually the one for April and I have no excuse other than the fact that ranking things gives me like low-key anxiety. Obviously, I don't want to minimize the struggles of people that actually have full-blown anxiety, but it's really hard to rank things. Honestly, if you've ever tried it, you know the feeling. And I have so much respect for YouTubers that rank their entire collections or like go through and do these massive ranking videos. When I did my 2020 rankings, oh my gosh, that was whew, that was a lot. So anyways, I do apologize for my tardiness as always, but without further blabbering, let's get into it. If you guys aren't in my channel, welcome. My name is Karen Harris. I like to film tan girl friendly makeup videos here on my channel, so if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I would highly recommend subscribing. I do upload every other day-ish, sometimes even more than that, so highly recommend subscribing, turning on that bell so you don't miss any of my future uploads. And yeah, now let's rank 13 eyeshadow palettes that I tried in the month of April. Okay friends, so April was an interesting month. I made a lot of life changes. I left my full-time job and basically the plan was for me to be kind of like a stay-at-home dog mom. And then I ended up picking up a part-time job at a local boutique because if you didn't know this about me, I have passion for fashion. Before I was a YouTuber, a beauty YouTuber, I was a fashion blogger or like an aspiring wannabe fashion blogger. I don't know, whatever, okay? Don't judge me. Anyway, I used to love fashion. I still do, but I definitely have more of a makeup budget and less of a clothing budget. So anyway, all of that aside, so I found my way back into retail and it's been so much fun. So I was playing with a lot of neutral palettes, and since I was home more, I was also playing with existing palettes in my collection, which I didn't really have time to do when I was working full-time. So you will see a lot of older palettes in this ranking, which is fine because I definitely made up for it in the month of May with so many new makeup releases. So you will see some oldies but goodies. And so because of that, I was playing with a lot of neutral palettes. Since then, also life update for you guys, I picked up another part-time job. So now I'm working 2 part-time jobs and YouTube, and I told my husband, I'm like, so I quit my full-time job and I ended up with 3 part-time jobs, which is basically the equivalent of a full-time job. So I don't know. It's just like, some days I'm like, what am I doing? Anyway, midlife crisis aside, I feel like I've droned on enough. So let's rank. I have them all in order here. We have 13 palettes. So I'm going to start off with number 13. This one is unfortunately my least favorite palette that I tried in the month of April. It is the SpongeBob collection with Wet n Wild. Now, packaging, 10 out of 10. It's so cute. The eyeshadows aren't bad. They're just not my favorite. I think that if you are a huge fan of the show, obviously you're gonna love this. And I hope that everybody that wanted this palette was able to get their hands on it. I never ended up finding it at my Walmart, so I bought it on the Ulta website when it launched, and then it like sold out. And I haven't really heard anything about it since that initial hype, so not sure how that's going, but I can definitely see myself decluttering this palette in the future. I thought I would maybe end up keeping it just because it's so cute. I think I'm okay with saying goodbye to it. So yeah, this is the palette in the 13th spot. I'm not going to make any promises, but if I have time, I'll try and link all the corresponding videos in the description box in case some of you want to go back and watch, because I'm pretty sure I have videos on at least all the new palettes in this ranking. So the next one is another new palette, and honestly, this palette isn't bad. I just feel like it puts me to sleep. Even the original palette, the one this is duping, puts me to sleep. So the Luster palette from Alter Ego, it's a nice palette. It's just not my favorite, and that's why I'm ranking it at number 12. It's a very neutral color story, which, don't get me wrong, I love a good neutral color story. You're going to see a ton of neutral palettes in this video, but it's just okay. It's not my favorite. I definitely prefer the Pat McGrath Divine Rose palette, but honestly, if I had to decide, like, fuck, marry, kill, I would kill this palette and I would kill the Divine Rose palette because I just think they are so boring. So no offense, this is just my thoughts. I know so many people love the original. I know a lot of people love this color story, and I get it. Colorful makeup isn't for everyone, and that's okay. We can all still get along. It's fine. So one of my favorite alter ego palettes, this one is in the 11th spot. But let me tell you, it's only because all the other palettes are so good. So we have the Canyon palette, and this is their dupe of the Natasha Denona bronze palette. And so I played with the bronze palette a lot. You'll see it coming up. But this palette is also very nice, so affordable, and the quality is really great. So if you're balling on a budget, like I used to say all the time when I was in college, and I was on my YouTube channel, I would say balling on a budget. If you're balling on a budget, this is a great palette. I think the pigmentation is beautiful. The mattes work great. I think they tried to do Natasha's cream to powder formula, and it's okay. It's not mind-blowing, but I think the metallics and the mattes are really nice. So very happy to have this palette. And I will say, these were both sent to me from Alter Ego, and I do have a code with them. It's not an affiliate code. It's just Karen10, and that saves you money. And I forgot to mention that, so I'm mentioning it now. And then in 10th place, I have the Alva palette from Odin's Eye. So Odin's Eye launched a new collection, and I was like prepping for it, so I started playing with this palette. And you guys wouldn't believe, I still haven't used their new palette. It's all still in a pile back here because they sent me a very generous PR package as well. So I'm still going to work on that video because I really like their products and I want to feature them. So anyway, anytime I see a new collection coming, if I have the time, I'll play with some of the older palettes that I have from the brand. And this is honestly my favorite Odin's Eye palette from the bigger palettes because I've only played with this one and the Alva 2. And I personally like the neutral color story better than the Alva 2, which has more like pastel and colorful shades. And the metallics are so beautiful as well. So this is a Swedish indie brand. If you haven't heard about them before, but I've talked about them. I know my friends have too. So very excited to see what's coming from them in the future. But this is a really cute palette, and like I said, there's a lot of neutral palettes in this rankings video, so it's a bit shocking because I feel like I am such a color lover, but then I also have a major neutral side, so I feel like this is really coming out this month. Okay, in 9th place, I have the Mary Jane palette from Melt Cosmetics. This is a cool tone eyeshadow palette. The reason I actually purchased this one is actually because even though it's a cool tone palette, they gave me a little bit of green over here, like really murky, muddy, really grungy greens, and so that made me a little bit happy because I don't really gravitate towards cool tones. And if you look really close, there's a lot of eyeshadows in this palette that I have not really dug into yet, so that's a little bit disappointing. I really need to go ahead and play with the rest of these eyeshadows. But honestly, sometimes I also just buy melt palettes because of the collector in me, so I can't help myself, and this one's really cute. And yeah, it's not my favorite melt palette by any means, and I don't know if I'll even say this is my favorite cool tone palette because I feel like I really prefer the Glam palette. But again, I need to use all of the cool tone palettes in my collection a little bit more before I can make any kind of assertion on that. But yeah, this is in the 9th spot. Okay, in 8th place is a big old colorful palette. This is the Dream Big palette from Be Perfect. Such a fun, colorful eyeshadow palette. There's so many fun textures and colors and formulas in this palette, and it's really kind of just like a surprise. It's like a fun house. You don't know what you're gonna get, and I just really like this color story. I can't wait to see what else they're gonna come out with this year because I think they're gonna do a Carnival 4, which is very exciting. But I think this is a really fun palette. I love all the grungy greens. I really like the eyeshadow look I came up with this palette. Again, another one that I'm dying to use more, but like I said, I've been focusing so much on the neutral palettes and so many new launches, especially with the end of May. I literally on Friday this past week I picked up the Red Velvet. I got like a in-stock email for the Annette palette with Menagerie, so I ended up buying that. I bought the lowest palette on the restock. I bought all these BH palettes. Like, there's some good stuff coming out here towards the very end of May. So, you guys know me. I love new palettes, and I gotta catch them all like Pokemon. So, and I really haven't had too much time to go back and reuse palettes, which I will honestly admit, like, that's okay to me because I love makeup. Makeup is my favorite thing, and so anytime I get to play with a new palette, it makes me so happy. So just providing all the disclaimers so you guys know where I'm at. So in 7th place is an oldie but a goodie. I had to bump this one down, no offense to Angie, because you guys know this was my favorite palette. I think in the month of March or February, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I had to bump this one down because there's some other palettes I wanted to like bump up a little bit, and I can't keep claiming Kaleidos is #1 every month. So we have the Angelica X Kaleidos palette. I did do a 3 looks video with this palette just in time for the restock, so I hope all of you were able to grab it because I believe this got discontinued after the last restock, although maybe I want to say I heard that she might be restocking. I honestly don't know, but this is a cute palette, great color story. I feel like I've talked about this palette, so highly recommend checking out Angie's video on this. Check out my video. Angie also did a playlist, so if you want to see a variety of different looks from a variety of different people with a variety of skin tones, you should definitely check out her playlist. And yeah, I love this palette. It has a very special place in my heart, of course. Okay guys, so in 5th place is a new to me brand, and honestly this color story is just so cool. This is the Glam Shop Camo palette. I don't know exactly what it's called, but oh my gosh, this little palette packs a freaking punch. And I just played with the BH Cosmetics Let That Ish Go palette. I'm actually wearing it on my eyes today. But if I were to crown like the ultimate green palette, especially one I've tried recently, I would have to mention this one because it's so freaking cool. There's so many fun textures in here, and it really just takes it up to so many like dimensions. Like, I want to say another level, but it's honestly like out of this world. Like, Glam Shop eyeshadows are so interesting, so unique. I actually have a whole palette of singles from them that I need to film some kind of video with, so it's always on my ever-growing list of videos that I need to do for y'all, but you know how it is. Anyway, I love that palette so much, so I had to feature it in the 6th spot. Okay, in 5th place, another palette that I bumped down from the last month's rankings is the Circo Loco. A beautiful palette from Natasha Denona. Obviously, this is not for the faint of heart. It is a very colorful eyeshadow palette, so if you're not into colorful makeup, you are not going to enjoy this palette, which is totally fine because, again, we don't all have to love everything, and I feel like Natasha Denona has done such a good job of providing variety in her collection. So I just really like this palette. It might be my favorite one from her. I definitely need to play with this some more, but I just feel like it came out at the perfect time. So colorful, so fun, and I've also really enjoyed the Mini Zendo palette, so it was fun to see her launch another palette as well since this one launched. But like I said, I am very behind on my rankings, so you'll see Natasha Denona a few more times in this rankings. It's not over for her yet, but this is such a cool palette. You guys will have to let me know down in the comments if you guys ended up picking this one up or if this was a pass for you because it's way too colorful, which is totally fine with me. So in 4th place is an oldie but a goodie, but I did end up playing with the Corte Rosa palette because they actually launched the Corte Rosa blush palette in the month of April, so I decided it only made sense to pull out one of my favorite palettes from Sigma, the Corte Rosa, and play with it in conjunction with the blush palette. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen my video on the blush palette is also amazing, so I will link the video for you guys where I played with the blush palette, and I believe I was wearing this eyeshadow palette on my eyes. It's such a stunning, like, neutral lovers eyeshadow palette, plus I love Sigma's eyeshadow formula. Their new palette, the Ambiance palette, is so pretty. You'll see that in my May rankings video. So if you guys are ever placing a Sigma order, please make sure you add this to cart because it is such a good palette and Sigma is stepping it up. Okay, in third place is another oldie but a goodie. I told you guys there's going to be some old palettes in this video. So we have the Gold palette from Natasha Denona. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think when this palette came out. I can't remember. It had to be like 2017 or 18, right? Because it definitely didn't come out in 2020. I think I've had it for quite some time, and honestly this palette does not get enough love from me, so I made an effort to pull it out and use it. I know so many people have like hit pan on this palette and they've, you know, used it to death, and I wish that was my life. I really do. Some of these more expensive palettes in my collection, I wish I could use them more, but I also love YouTube, so it's a never-ending slippery slope, you know? But this is such a great palette. I still love this. You guys ask me constantly, like, which Natasha Denona palette is my favorite, and every time I feel like I've narrowed it down, she comes out with something new, and then I'm like back to square one. So you guys know Natasha Denona is one of my favorite brands, and the Gold palette was my favorite for so long, and then the Metropolis dethroned it, and yeah, so anyway, the Gold palette still has a very special place in my heart, and I just love that color story. So if you are a bougie makeup lover and you don't own the Gold palette, highly recommend picking that up. Okay, in second place is a drugstore palette, you guys. So last place is a drugstore palette and second place is a drugstore palette, and the only reason this was coming in second is because I don't feel like they did enough versions of this palette. Like, I feel like they should have made maybe one more, but you guys know how much I love this e.l.f. Jen Atkins palette. I was so blown away. Honestly, if you didn't tell me this was an e.l.f. palette, I would probably believe that this was like a Natasha Denona or a Pat McGrath or a Sigma palette or something like a high-end brand that I really like. And I highly recommend, if you are my skin tone, go get this palette. If you're balling on a budget, this is an amazing everyday palette for you guys. I was able to do the most beautiful smoky eye. This black is no joke. It's so pigmented. All of these face shades work really well with my skin tone, which makes me so happy. And so yeah, this is in number 2, and I love this palette so much. Okay guys, any guesses as to who is number 1? I think if you were really paying close attention to the video, you would probably have suspicions, but there's no way you guys are gonna guess this one because it's an older palette. It came out last summer, and so I'm talking about none other than the Bronze palette from Natasha Denona. Oh my gosh, this palette has just had like a renaissance in my collection. I reached for this so much for my new job when I was out of the house, and I just wanted to do an easy neutral look that goes with everything. And yeah, so good. Love this so much. If you are a neutral basic palette loving bee, this is a must-have palette in your collection. The formula is so good. There's a shade in here called Deep Dive. It's the Natasha Denona cream to powder formula. It is so good. It's so easy to blend. It's so ooey gooey. It's so good. If she does a palette of nudes that are the cream to matte, so I can just sit and blend those into my crease, I would be such a happy camper. So that is my number 1 palette. I don't think anyone would have guessed that a palette from last year would be number 1 this year, but that is how the cookie crumbled, guys. So I promise I will get my May rankings video up sooner rather than later because I have so much fun putting these videos together for you guys, and you guys really seem to enjoy ranking videos as well. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Let me know your number 1 palette for the month of April or the month of May. Thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you in my next video soon. Bye guys!